Hello, and welcome to our live stream today, continuing our Leadership Insight series sponsored by the Education Committee with the Managed Print Services Association. Today's featured guest is from In Time Tec. Matt Fratzke is the EVP and General Manager for Product with In Time Tec. And we'll be kicking it off here in just a minute with Matt. But want to remind you, if you're watching our live stream for the first time today, please connect with us on LinkedIn. The live stream will be shared recording on our YouTube channel. And of course, the MPSA has produced several ebooks that we want to make sure you take advantage of. So check them out on our website where we have our white papers housed. If you are a first-time attendee, the Managed Print Services Association is a nonprofit organization made up completely of volunteers who strive to provide community education, research, and best practices to help organizations actively manage anything related to document output devices. To learn more about the MPSA, please visit our website, yourmpsa.org. We sponsor a lot of members events and want to do some shout outs today. Obviously, this is one of our live stream education events and ebooks that are all cataloged within our website. But the MPSA is also proud to recognize leaders with our industry through our Leadership Circle Awards. And we'd like to have a shout out and recognize today our most recent honorees of our Leadership Circle AIS, or Advanced Imaging Solutions in Minnesota, as a dealer recipient of the MPSA Leadership Circle Award, and Predictive Insights, a software distributor of leading software products within our channel, also recognized within our MPSA Leadership Circle. So a virtual round of applause to our friends at AIS and Predictive Insight. Thank you for all you do to contribute to our industry and to take care of your customers. There's also networking provided through our MPSA. We provide all kinds of opportunities for committee participation. And I'd like to just do a mini advertisement here today for the Education Committee. This is part of our contribution to the MPSA. If you'd like to get more involved with the Education Committee, we are looking for additional members. If you'd like to join as a member of the MPSA, individuals, independent dealers, vendors, and consultants, there's a lot of advantages and opportunities to being part of our organization, and you can learn more and interact. Any questions can be directed to our membership committee. And so we'll be kicking off today's Leadership Insight with In Time Tec. Matt is joining us today from the great Oregon area and in the greater Portland area today. I'm actually in my hybrid office here in the Midwest, but I'm often out in the Portland, Oregon area as well. So it's kind of funny, we're not in the same time zone today. But Matt, thank you so much for joining us today for this Leadership Insights interview. And let's start off, if you can just start off, we'd like to learn more about you, your role within your organization, and high level, can you tell us more if somebody doesn't know who In Time Tec is? What does your organization do?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me. Of course, happy to be here today and share a little bit. It's funny, I just on June 6th was kind of my 30th anniversary of work, graduated from college and kind of getting out into the workforce. And my first job was with HP. So I was involved in print, right from the get-go. In fact, had interned at the Vancouver office in 1995, Vancouver, Washington, came back in 96 full-time, and then stayed there until we started In Time Tec back in 2009. And so print's always been a part of my life, really. I mean, it's funny, this kind of preparing a little bit for today, I started kind of looking back at my own career a little bit, and it's just, I've kind of gotten to see a lot of it, right? I mean, from a print perspective of where it started and where it's gotten to. back in '96, we were working on inkjet printers in Vancouver. They were these devices, all they did was print. They had no other special features. They weren't incredibly fast, of course, by today's standards, and they were $600 a piece. And it was a nice beige brick that printed. And now, you kind of look today and you look at where things are at. And I, kind of look over my own office. I've got a couple devices over there, and for a very similar price, obviously they do way more than was possible back then with features that we weren't even really thinking of. And same token, watch kind of the whole software world evolved. I mean, I was in printer drivers, which also has a funny arc based on today, because printer drivers were, of course, the thing that we were working on them for Windows 3.1, Windows 95, which definitely dates my 30 years in the industry, and delivering them on floppy disks. And it was as much a part of the manufacturing process as making the device, but yet software was there, right? That was kind of like, that was the software for printing back then. And now you look, Microsoft is actually now moving towards WPP next year. Drivers are going to go away. 30 years later, the end of drivers has finally occurred. I think Microsoft's only wanted that for about 25 of those 30 years. And, you see how capable the devices are. You see how much software has kind of become king in this world. Everything's got software. The devices run software. We run software on our desktops, on our mobiles, and so on. Cloud software, it just goes on and on and on. And so it's been fun to watch kind of the whole industry transform, over the last 30 years, from these simple parallel port connected, non-networked, single function devices to these extremely capable, extremely fast color devices with screens and apps installed on them and solutions built around them. I mean, it's been really fun to kind of watch the world shift. Now, when I left HP and started In Time Tec with 4 other partners, so there's 4 of us that were the original founders of In Time Tec. 4 of us come from HP's printing background, and so we've always kind of had a strong printing DNA in our company, and you can really kind of see that today globally. So we've got offices here in the U.S. I'm in Lake Oswego, Oregon. We have our U.S. headquarters in Meridian, Idaho, just a little bit west of Boise. No coincidence, that's close to the HP Boise site that's been there for a long time. And then we've got offices in Europe and the Middle East, Latin America, and APAC. And so kind of offices everywhere. And really all of our DNA is around software. And so our company is a software company. We've either been developing software for people, with people, or developing our own products for the entire time we've been in business. And as you can imagine, a lot of it has to do with printing. And so kind of over the last 17 years that we've been in business, we kind of now call it sort of an In Time Tec group of companies. We've sort of collected some things through acquisition and through partnership, but a number of things that really play into this space. And so obviously on the software development side, can't speak to exactly the exact people we've been working with, but a number of partners that are both in print solutions and in OEMs, helping them with their printing software and firmware. But then on our own side, we've developed some products in this space. And so we've got a Cartos, our Cartos solution, which is really around fleet discovery, fleet design, total cost of ownership calculation, and helping MPS providers build proposals around that. We've got AI solutions that we're developing that for all different industries, including helping folks in the print space. We've got a product that we acquired last year, acquired majority stake in for cloud service providers called RackNap. I know that somewhere around 70%, give or take, of all MPS providers also have managed IT and kind of MSP services. So we've got a finger in that, and then also we've been developing software for kind of in the cloud space as well. And so it's really been kind of a journey of software development. Obviously, we do a lot of things outside of print, but we have a whole bunch of things that we do inside of print.
Mind sharing, what are some of the other vertical markets that you're also involved with outside of print?
Sure. Yeah, it's funny now when I talk about kind of the software side of things. I think we can take probably our own experiences and sort of look and see that it's really permeated every part of our life,
Mhm.
from using the app at the grocery store to banking to healthcare, finance, agriculture, and we actually work across all those spaces and more. And so, what we've really looked for is opportunities to see where we can come along with somebody and help them with some of their needs, and sort of gotten into so many different verticals now. Really, it really spans a wide breadth. On the product side, it's a lot of print focused verticals, and like I've already mentioned, but also like airport operations, agriculture. Um, there's opportunities everywhere for software.
I think that having that diversification exposure to other things also, allows you guys to stay nimble and not have all your eggs in one basket, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, Sarah. And also, but it also gives you kind of an interesting view of the world too. Right now, we're seeing things in different industries, and we're finding actually a lot of similarities in some cases in terms of what people need. Particularly, say AI right now is a
Mhm.
huge one. I mean, to me, that's one of those topics that was kind of a funny topic a few years ago, when it was like, chat with a virtual friend almost. To watch how quickly it's moved into really the mainstream, and how much we're using AI internally for our own needs, and then helping a lot of clients outside of our company with their needs. And it's part of that same thing, that kind of that journey, really watching technology over the last 30 years. I was just sharing with somebody the other day, is it's funny to now look back and see sort of this layering that's happened over the years. I happen to be very lucky in my home. I had a PC at a very young age, and that got me into computers and programming, and eventually a computer science degree. And finally, PCs kind of made it more mainstream, and so everybody's got a PC, and you start to get some software on it and so on. Then you get the internet, and that kind of came along when I was in college. There was nothing to do. The coolest site out there was to go look at pictures from space from NASA. There was really no real function for it. I mean, really,
I
other
was
than
going to ask you if your first computer was a Commodore 64, but
we had so many different computers. That's what I was. We had Ataris and Commodore 64s and PC clones. We had IBM
I, I,
device. I mean,
I've now turned into one of those old people who can make those good references, right? So it's
no, I love it.
that was our first home PC was a Commodore 64, and we thought we were at the height of excitement there,
Totally.
playing, doing DOS based things. So this current generation would be like, oh, what foreign language are these two people speaking today? But let me kind of jump into learning,
Sure.
kind of focusing more on where your organization and how does your organization generally operate within the managed print services or the MPS landscape. I think you touched on a couple of things that you guys
Sure.
offer, but what has been your relationship and involvement with the MPSA community? And can you talk more about the specific things that In Time Tech provides and does for MPS providers or resellers or people within that space?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, if you look at kind of our involvement with the MPSA, I was joking around a little bit with Lyndon the other day that one of our folks that's really involved in Anthony as well. So Anthony Chen, he sits on the board. Anthony's been heavily involved with the MPSA for quite a while, and then of course Lyndon Nolan sits on the Education Committee. They've been heavily involved, and from a company perspective, I think, like I said, managed print has been part of something that we've been involved in for a long time. Those guys are definitely the face of our company there. I was like, I was kind of telling them like, hey, I'm not sure I do that much. And like, no, 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 you provided a lot of support for us, and making sure that we have the funding that we need to be a part of this, and being able to attend events where MPSA has a presence and so on. And so, they've been really the face of In Time Tech with MPSA. I think from a company perspective, what we really look at is how do we support dealers, how do we support OEMs, and how do we support other software providers in the space. And so I can kind of, if we look at that kind of from different angles, I mean, when it comes to OEMs, and again, without naming names, I mean, we have a number of OEMs that are using our Cartos solution for fleet discovery design, and so on. So we see a lot of OEMs taking advantage of the software that we provided, and some have even gone so far as to work with us to build custom integrations around it to help it integrate into their environment, in a more tightly coupled way with maybe their pricing systems and other things. And so, definitely on the OEM side, I think we see dealers also using Cartos for that kind of support as well. And so for those that are out there wanting to do fleet management, fleet design, Cartos has become a great tool for them. We also provide some TCO, total cost of ownership tools involved in that. That's really helpful for them in terms of calculating, say they're in a deal and they're looking at an existing fleet and they want to compare it to the fleet that they're going to go ahead and propose. We've got the tools in there to do TCO calculation and proposal generation and so on. And so we see a lot of dealer channel and taking advantage and support of that. And then there's this breadth of software providers that are out there. I think one of the things that, as I was talking a little bit about my HP career in drivers for a little while, then flipped over to work on the Edgeline product. I don't know, for folks that remember that, it was kind of the first high-speed inkjet product. But that's where I got introduced into extensibility, so solutions really. And it really opened my eyes to how, yes, the printer's great. Like my focus was on the printer and the driver and the device and the cartridges and supplies and all the things around it. But what it really opened my eyes to were all the solutions that were being created out there in the world based on this thing, right? So whole companies, whole ecosystems around solutions were out there. And finally, as I got introduced in the extensibility space, where we were helping support these folks with APIs and hardware connects and so on for them, really helped me see kind of the breadth of what's possible. And we end up working with a lot of those providers today, a number of them, to kind of help them develop solutions because we've got that expertise, right? We've got that really deep software expertise, as we talked about earlier, in a lot of verticals and a lot of different technologies. But our heart and our background is always in printing. And so we've kind of got that whole package for people that are interested in getting some help with software support for what they're up to, because we're a great partner in that. We just have that background.
So from your perspective, if you had to think about the most significant way, it's tough because you just mentioned some really good solutions, some powerful things that really help people. But if you had to think of the most significant way your organization is making or can make, because you guys may be working on something cool you want to talk about today, I don't know. What is the most significant way you guys are making a positive impact on the broader MPSA community, right? So, it may be your most popular solution, or it may be something that you feel like, hey, we think this could make the greatest impact if more people were adopting it. If you had to pick something that is most significant that In Time Tec is offering or doing, what would that be to share with the audience today?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a tough question, right? Because we do so many different things, and a lot of impact is kind of in the eye of the beholder, right? In terms of like what you're looking for. If I look at managed print today, I think it's no secret to anybody. We talk about this a lot, that over time, print is, in my world, kind of in a long tail decline, right? In terms of actually having the printed page. There's just fewer pages being printed, and it is what it is. However, there's a really long tail to that. So what are we doing in the interim to sort of figure out like what else? And this is where I get back to solutions and software and interoperability. I think that's where we can help kind of create some of the biggest impact, because at the end of the day, customers want solutions, right? That's what they're after. The reason they print something isn't just for the sake of putting ink or toner on a page, right? They're using it for something.
I'm everywhere I go, I say print it, because it's good for everybody. But
there's a reason.
An anomaly.
Yeah, totally. And me too, right? I still print a lot of things, but I think it's probably a little bit of just kind of our history. I think when you look kind of going forward, you want that printed page for something. There's some solution around it, some reason to have it, and that's the next evolution of all this was, for me anyway, is okay. We now have all this software in our environment. We have software that manages our practice. We have software that manages our customers. We have our own internal software and software tools. And a lot of times these are all different things. And so I think what we're looking towards is kind of an age of how do we start to bring these things together in a way where they can talk to each other. And to me, that's all software. And, we're providing, I think, pieces of that in different ways. And so like Cartos is a piece of that. It shows a view of the world, kind of the customer and their managed print environment and their devices, what they had and what they're maybe moving to. It brings in DCA information, data collection agent information, so you can sort of see usage and make intelligent decisions. Like for us, I can see a next layer of that is layering AI on top of that and using some of the best minds in the industry to help the person who's in front of the screen make better choices about how they reimagine or reconfigure some of these printing environment. And so, that ability to work with AI, that ability for interoperability between systems. Now, how do I get that data out of that system and into a proposal system or something else or into my
Yep.
CRM? Like that is the world that we're in. How do we optimize and how do we sort of utilize kind of today's existing technologies to just do a better job?
Yeah, if connecting that all and having that in an integrated solution would be a pretty significant impact for an organization. Absolutely, from what I'm hearing today.
I think so, but I also don't think people are going to go away from their favorite tools, right? It's a big lift to switch from one thing to another. That's why I think the ability inside of, if you look at the MPSA and all the people that are involved in providing these solutions for dealers and so on, a little bit more working together to paint a bigger picture. Like I don't want to own everything, right? I can't. Our company can't provide all the pieces that, for instance, a dealer or an OEM needs. But what we can do is help utilize data from different places and stitch that together and use that more in an integrated workflow that maybe has different pieces in the middle of it to create a better overall experience. I think to me, that's where it's at.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense because sometimes changing some of these core tools is just a hurdle that people can't get over. But if I can move it and integrate it better to better across that bridge that you discussed, it could make some really significant improvements for dealers' workflow and the ability to not do things manually. We're really, yeah, I think as a channel, we're really good at figuring out how to do things manually, but sustaining that manual workflow is the challenge, right? Is that where we really want to put our time and effort. So let's talk about industry shift, right? 30 years, I don't know, used to sound like a long time, but now as the older I get, doesn't sound like a long time. But given
It's a
that
good thing.
given that veteran status of, hey, this is where I've been, you've seen some major industry shifts. But let's apply it to In Time Tech. This is a company you guys started in 2009, four of you. Describe a time when your organization has had to adapt to a major industry shift. What did you learn from that? And what is the most valuable lesson that you can share with our listening audience today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, a lot of things have happened over the last 17 years. I think for me, it's really, if I kind of go back to it, it's not, I think we've been in this constant state of change, right? That the only thing that's constant is change, right? And I, as I was sharing a bit earlier, kind of the old PC stories. But I mean, if you really look, PC came, internet came, they work together to create something better. Mobile shows up. Suddenly now all that's a new ecosystem that's creating something better. Then cloud shows up. Now all four of those things, we're using our PCs, our mobiles, the internet and cloud, they're all connected. Now you go ahead and layer AI on top of that. One more layer to the whole thing. So these solutions have been growing in terms of what they've been able to do in terms of scale, but also complexity as time's gone on. And I think, continuing to adapt to those shifts. And for us, I would say this last one, the AI one, has come really fast and really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from my perspective, it went from something that was kind of novel and fun to like, hey, this has got a real place in industry. It's got a real place in, I know it's got a real place in my daily life. I use it every day. I use it for research. I use it for working in legal and finance and HR. I use it for everything from documents to helping me ideate. It's become kind of like my assistant. And I think, for us as a company, we were very much focused on kind of our core software development capabilities a few years ago. And when AI came out, you heard a lot of talk around how this is going to take over everything and there's going to be no more coders and so on. I'm not quite sure I believe that yet, but it has made a major shift in the world. I mean, if you look at kind of, if you look at software space, there's been a lot of change in terms of workforce, what they're up to, how many of them you need with AI now in place. And so I would say for us, getting clear that this was something that wasn't just a fad, getting clear that it was something that was going to be really important in the industry, and then getting on board early, in my world, in a lot of ways, saved our company, to be completely honest, because it's that significant of a shift in this space. And I think creates a ton of opportunities as well. Like there's in our group of companies, we have a sister company that's distributes a product called Slevio. It's a secure print solution. and it's distributed globally. We happen to be the distributor in the Americas. But like, for instance, taking AI into account, using AI for real-time monitoring of documents that are flowing through the system for data loss prevention. That's great. I mean, that's gone now beyond keywords and saying, gosh, if you see something that says this, flag it. And now you can go ahead and use AI to train a model to look for very specific things in your organization that it can do with a lot more intelligence, for instance, than just basic search. And so, there's a great application in the print space of something that's really making a difference. And yet, you could do it before AI, but it's a lot easier to understand how to do it now. And it's a lot clearer about the impact that it can make, because AI is now here. And it's here to stay. I think, if you're in this space, if you're in managed print and managed services, like, you should be looking at your clients and figuring out a way where, talking to them about AI and figuring out some way you can help them in that space, because I don't see this going away. It's going to grow.
I want to learn more about what you were talking about with this AI. It really caught my attention because I thought, well, a certain White House probably could have used this information, right? So we're talking about using AI to streamline a process that would have been potentially managed by a software, a scanning type. Help me learn more about that, because I'm fascinated by what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like data loss prevention, for instance, let's just look at that as an example. I mean, and this has been a part of the story around secure print, and which has been a big part of selling managed print for a very long time, right? I mean, it's almost become table stakes, if you ask me, from a solution perspective in the MPS world.
Right.
And it's been great. Like, it's provided all kinds of help in terms of identity. And I listened to one of the DataSec conversations the other day, and it was great. They were talking a lot about identity. That's always been integrated into the solution. So you know who's standing at the device, you know what they're doing, you know what they're scanning, you know what they're printing. That's all been great, and it's been useful at times to help with data loss prevention in a kind of a secondary way, right? Maybe figure out who is printing what where. Well, now we've got this opportunity. As we were scanning the print stream, people started integrating some data loss prevention around looking for keywords. Well, that's inherently requires some additional work, because a keyword it's just simply looking for a simple phrase or a simple something inside of a document. And people have added, layers of technology around that's made it get better and better. But now with AI, the ability to give AI much more general instructions, like, I want to know if anybody's printing a banking statement. That's a lot different than saying, find the name of my bank inside of a document, right? Those two things are very different. And
Absolutely.
so now I can describe at a very high level things I'm looking for, things I want to make sure are protected, or I want to know if somebody's printing them. Now I've got that capability, and it's much, much easier to describe. And I'm going to tell you that the results are going to also be much, much more accurate, a lot less false positives, whereas keywords can kind of find things, get stuck on things that aren't really the thing. And this is going to be a lot more accurate.
Fascinating. I love that, especially when we are trying to talk to our customers about security, just understanding all of those pieces, and some of the outright, we're able to lock this door, but we can't look at this one, right? So it's just exciting to talk more about the whole ecosystem. So thanks for digging in that with me.
Sure.
What do you think is the biggest opportunity? And we touched on this with the AI conversation, but what do you think is the biggest opportunity for innovation? And we've also touched on a little bit collaboration as well. But what do you see as the biggest opportunity for innovation and collaboration within the managed print community?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think inside the managed print community, really, it kind of again goes back to, I think, two things for me, and it goes back to, again, that kind of that interoperability story. How do we get more of our tools to work better together? I can just use the example of Cartos, kind of our tool. We can import all kinds of files into it from a data collection agent perspective. But what we're also trying to do is work with partners in this space, and Printinista is one of them that's been announced, to work with them and to actually bring that data in an API sort of way, make it very easy to connect those tools, right? So I don't have to go and search and find the file in Printinista or that I want to go to and export it to a certain format and then bring it into my tool and make sure that the columns are right and all those things. So I want to make that just easier. I want to take friction out of the system. I want to take time out of the system. I want to make it easier for these two things to work together. So we're building partnerships in that space. I think there's a lot of room for people in the managed print space to look at other software providers and see like, hey, I see something maybe in their tool where we could help them, or I could help, we could help each other. We've announced a partnership a while ago with Agent Dealer, where we help them with their TCO calculations. And so some of the data that we have, we can actually provide it we're providing it inside of Agent Dealer to help with TCO calculations, because over the years, we made a choice back when we started developing Cartos to actually, sounds a little crazy, but we went through and built an entire, we call it our device data service, but an entire database of all the managed print devices that we could find from, the last, I want to say 20 years. There's like 16,000 devices in this database with speeds, feeds, supplies, information, and so on. And, no one's going to really build that again. You really shouldn't. But, we found partnerships in that space where people are using that data of ours to do work inside of their system and make what they had even better. And so to me, that's a huge one. How do we all get along and how do we all work better together? I think, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, I don't want to build everything, but I think we can find partners who can help us build better. And at the end of the day, who benefits from that? Well, our customers, whether they're the OEMs or the dealers or channel or whatnot. And then finally, that end customer as well benefits from that. They get a better experience. And so I think interop's huge. And again, going back to AI, I think AI is the opportunity in this space. And it's really figuring out, how do you use it? Like, if I'm an MPS provider, how can I use AI? I can use it to help build better presentations. Like there should be, should be able to customize everything I say and do for my clients using AI in a much easier way. I should be able to use it for, say, reconciling billing and other things that have maybe been a manual challenge in the past. Why am I not using AI for that? Why am I not offering AI services potentially to my customers? Maybe there's an opportunity. I would think better support. Now, support's a great low-hanging fruit in the AI space. I can take all this support documentation that I have and have a chatbot that is way smarter than it's ever been before. It's got access to a massive amount of data. It's got more clarity in its answers. Like, these are all things I think that are all possibilities in the managed print space that are all either related to interop or AI.
Yeah. I think you've touched on some good ones. If I'm taking a lot of notes, it's because I'm going to make notes for myself. So sometimes in the process of interviewing people through this leadership insight, it's also me making notes of things I want to take note of and take back to my business. So I hope our viewing audience is doing that today. But if you had to really think about one, I'll let you have two because you're really nice today, Matt, but one or two key messages, what are the key takeaways that you would like to leave our audience with today? As they resonate in the minds of them, I think we've touched on some really good topics today. I think this is my first leadership insight interview that we've not talked about COVID, which has been fascinating. So I had to throw that key word in there just in case anybody's searching the manuscript. Right?
I thought about it for our challenge. Believe me, printing in the office was a rough one during COVID, but
absolutely,
I think we all got it at this point.
We've all kind of quasi come out the other side. If not, you sold and moved on, right? So. But if you had to think of the one key message you'd like to leave with our audience today about what you see, what In Time Tec is seeing, and where you guys are leading in the managed print space, what would you like to leave our audience with today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for me, really, it's for us, I can speak to us as a company. I would say that be nimble and continue to evolve as technology evolves. And I would say also, don't just be building technology for the sake of technology, if you know what I mean. Like, I've seen this show up too much in the industry as well.
Agreed.
And I hate to, I don't want to pick on anybody in particular, but I mean, for instance, when mobility came out, everybody wanted to find a way to print from their mobile phones. Okay. There are some use cases, for instance, for that, but let's find the use case that really solves a customer need. Let's not do it kind of for our own self.
Right.
I think, I think that's kind of the thing. Like, hey, I have an iPhone. I love apps. I have way too many of them. Some of them I never use. Some of them I
Ditto.
use all the time.
Yes.
You know, but again, where do apps belong? How many of them do you need? How many make sense for a given device? Again, I think what we've really learned is how do we really go and try and figure out what customers really need and hone in on that and not be as worried about the technology in the beginning. Because, and again, AI is a great example now. There's a whole lot of companies that really want to check the box for my product's AI enabled. I have been let down by so many of those offerings because that's what they're doing right now. They realize if you don't have it, you seem like you aren't with the times. But if
Yeah.
you do have it, I want it to do something useful for me, right? I want to provide something of real value. And I think that's, like I'll give a little bit of a preview. I mean, like I said about Cartos, maybe I mentioned a bit earlier, but like, what if, so not so many people are interested in MPS anymore. I think by so many people, I mean youth. Let's take as an example. Like how much do I want to learn about fleet design? Maybe not that much. But what if, for instance, Cartos could go off with some AI background intelligence and actually help you redesign that fleet based on some of the best fleet designers that we've ever known that could help you kind of have an existing fleet designed to a new fleet using AI. Like that would provide like real value for somebody. Suddenly now I don't have to be as worried about who's going to run the tool for me now. I can be more interested in just going out, gathering the data and letting the tool kind of get me 90-something% of the way there. Like that's to me like real value.
Well,
And I
and
think
sometimes
that's,
your reliance on what was at one point. I mean, we've all been there doing those massive walkthroughs, pulling all the config pages.
you got
When
it.
I think about AI applications to walk through, like there's times painfully we have to physically map it, but we think about the time to compile that data on the back end and AI
Yep.
applications as it goes to a fleet analysis and management. Your reliance on that matured specialist is a little bit less dependent, especially if you have a large sales team. So I
Totally.
think what you're talking about today resonates with all generations, especially people we got away from our disciplined analysis and walkthrough coming out of COVID. So, oh
There's
my
that word
gosh,
again. But yes,
I
I
said
know.
COVID twice, right?
But it's
But
the reason though. Yeah.
we used to be pretty disciplined in our approach, and now I
Mhm.
think we've come a loosey goosey. And I think that the application of some of the tools that you guys are working on at In Time Tech, or just better utilization of those tools and the application of AI, could bring back those best practices without necessarily having to add headcount is a pretty good key message to leave people with today. But as we wrap up, just want to thank you so much for joining us today on behalf of your colleagues at In Time Tech. I have the dubious honor, and it really has been a pleasure to get to know your colleague on our education committee, and just want to appreciate your organization for your commitment to board service, committee service, and your time today here. So, on behalf of the MPSA, we want to thank you, Matt, for joining us on today's Leadership Insights interview. But
Thanks,
before
Sarah.
we close out today's live stream, if there's anything else you want to leave our audience with, I want to let you have the last word.
Oh, no, it's fine. No, I think if there's anything I want to leave the audience with, at least when it comes to In Time Tech, is like our commitment is creating abundance. That's what we talk about as a company. And so what does that mean for me? It's like we're always here to help. We've got experience in managed print, we've got experience in secure print, we've got experience in software and firmware, fleet design, a multitude of different solutions in the AI space. And so I think that's just what we're going to continue to bring to the market, right? That's what we're about. We're here to help. If anything in this interview is of interest to you, and you want to know more about something, I'm here. I'm always available to talk about it. And I don't mean from a sales perspective. I mean just something that may have piqued your interest, and you want to know something more about something. I think that's just who we are. And so yeah, it's been great. The MPSA has been great for us for sure as a company. It's provided some great insights, and it's provided some great connections. I think a big part of it for us is just networking and knowing more folks in this industry. And so, hats off to the MPSA. They've done a great job. It seems like everywhere I go to a show where print's involved, I at least see Eric everywhere. And so it's been great to kind of network in that way too, and meet like-minded individuals kind of interested in the same space. So appreciate you and all that you do.
Well, and now that we've spent time together virtually, next time I'm back out at my corporate headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon, I'm going to be sure to try to connect with you in person too. So
Love,
I
love to.
always appreciate making new connections as well. So we want to thank Matt. We want to thank you again, and thank you our attending audience. If you have any questions or you want to reach out, we are easy to find with the MPSA on all of your social media networks, and there's a QR code for you to easily find us as we close out today. Thank you again.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.